Alright, welcome back. So in this video I'm actually going to cover non-escaping closures and autoclosures. I've gotten a message from Jeff Labora. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your last name right. Sorry if I'm butchering it. But he did make a valid point. I didn't cover it. So I'm backtracking yet again this week. Alright, so bear with me. I'm going to make some Pulp Fiction references here, because I was actually watching it when I was prepping for it, so bear with me. Alright, non-escaping closure. What is a non-escaping closure? Well, according to, the Swift documentation, it says that it's a closure that's said to escape a function when it passes an argument to that function, but it's called after the function returns. So what does that mean exactly? Well, we're going to find out. So basic syntax of a non-escaping closure, we're just going to do some function. This is just a function with a name. Some function, I know, really creative. And how we indicate the closure coming in as a parameter or as an argument, we're going to do at no escape. And then we're going to give it a name, so it's some closure coming in. And it's going to not take any parameters. And it's also not going to return any parameters. Alright. And then we have our curly brackets, and inside we're just going to, have something in here that does some work, right? So that's basic syntax. So basically you just add the keyword at no escape in front of the closure name or the parameter name for that closure. Now, we've actually have encountered a non-escaping closure before, and that was when we worked with sort in arrays. So if you remember back in the array video, I did an example with sort. And so I'm just going to show you, again, how that works. So let's create an array. So we're going to have our some characters in movie. And again, I'm sorry, I'm having some Pulp Fiction stuff in here. There was, I believe its name was Brett. And then there's Mr. Wallace. Alright, so we have some names here in no particular order. So if you remember, when we wanted to sort something, we just do some characters in movie dot sort. And what this did, it would sort the items in an array ascending, so in ascending order, so from A to Z. But if you remember from my last video, I wanted to show you, or I showed you how to sort descending, so the opposite, so Z to A. And how we did that is we actually passed in a closure. So if we do some characters in movie dot sort, and we passed in our closure, we could sort in reverse. So we did I, comma J, in I greater than J, because we want it to be in the reverse. See if we've got the curly bracket. So what this should do is it should sort in the reverse. Actually, I need to, what do I need to do? I actually need to assign this to a variable. So var array, and then we'll see that it's going to be sorted in the opposite direction. Yeah, so it sorts it in descending order. Alright, so you're saying, well, where did the no escape come in? Well, if you hold down the option key and scroll over sorts, holding down the option key and then clicking on it, we go to our mutable reference here for sort. Actually, you can see right here the declaration, sort at no escape. So we can see that sort does take, or actually makes the closure that came in a Nonescape closure. So basically what sort does is it says, okay, I'm going to use this closure, but I don't need it afterwards. So it's useless. It's made useless after sort does its job on the array. Okay? And if you want to read more about it, again, you can just click on the documentation. You do Command F for sort, and then sort for sort. So I did Command F to open up the find and just typed in sort, and then you can see the implementation for sort. So if you see down here, here's our sort function. So the default implementation, which is what I did here, right here, my default is in there. But when I actually brought in a closure to do the opposite, so instead of doing ascending or the default sorting, I wanted the opposite sorting. This is what I used. As you see here, the declaration for the sort method is a function called sort that takes a parameter that's a non-escaping closure. Okay, so that's sort. Pretty cool, huh? All right. The thing is it's great to have another example. So I mentioned I was watching Pulp Fiction. So if you remember the characters Vincent and Jules, Vincent I consider is kind of like a no escape or non-escaping closure because he's no nonsense. You know, once whatever he has comes in, or whatever he grabs onto, once it comes in, it's not going anywhere else. You know, he's the law kind of thing. It's his way or the highway, right? Or at least he tries. Okay. So basically, Nonescape tells the compiler that the passed in closure, it can't be used outside the function when it's passed into. So it actually enables a control flow like functions to be more transparent about their behavior. So if you know that this closure that you're going to be using shouldn't be used anywhere else and you only need it for this one function or this one thing, you would use a no escape or a non-escaping closure. And I'll show you what happens. So let's create a variable that's going to be a closure variable. So it's actually going to be a variable that holds a closure. It might hold a closure, it might not. So it's actually going to be an optional. So it takes no parameters and also doesn't return anything. I'm going to make it a closure, optional, because it may or may not contain anything. I don't want, the system to completely freak out when I'm doing this. All right, so I'm going to create another function here. So I'm going to do function prepare to take a briefcase. So let's imagine that this function is something that Vincent would do, is an action that Vincent would do. And I'm going to create a no escape parameter. It's going to be actually a closure. So I'm going to name it a vengeance. Actually, I think it was Jules that mentioned a vengeance, but I'm going to have fun with this. So it's going to be void, and we have curly brackets. So the thing I wanted to show you is things you can't do with a closure that's coming in a not-escape closure. So really the first thing you can't do is you can't store it in a variable. So I'm just going to say you can't store it, period. You'll see why. So I'm going to have my closure variable above can take a closure that has exactly the same format as my vengeance parameter here. So if that's the case, can I assign that? And you'll see, no, you can't. If we look at the warning, it says cannot assign value of type at no closure void to type block. So yeah, you can't do that. So it's a no. 2, you can't capture it in another non-escaping closure. All right, so what do I mean by that? So say down here we have another function. So we're going to call this function try to let the closure escape. And this is going to be flank closure. Another one. So basically, this should be the same format. I'm going to do void just to make it clear. Curly brackets. And it's not going to contain anything right now. So it's just empty for right now. Just to show you that I can't use it. So if I try to call this function, so try to let a closure escape, I try to say, hey, let's have a vengeance go down here. Oh, we got another wonderful warning. Invalid conversion from non-escaping function of type at no escape to potentially escaping function type. So this is considered an escaping function because it doesn't have this keyword at no escape. So yeah, you can't do that either. So that covers 2 things already. So we can't transfer it. We can't transfer the non-escaping closure to a variable to store it anywhere. We also can't transfer it to another function that does not have an escaping closure. So, all right, number 2 or 3. We can't let it run asynchronously. See if I can spell this right. Sleep. Okay. So there's times where you would want to run something asynchronous to whatever you're doing, especially if like you're dealing with anything where you're pulling data from, the interwebs. If there's a lag and whatever, you can't let a non-escaping closure be in something that's asynchronous. Because of the example up here is that it's called after the function returns. So it needs to be there. It can't just, lie around and wait. So a great example is we do dispatch asynchronous, and then we do dispatch get main sequence queue, and we try to pass in a vengeance. We should get another error. And an error is, invalid conversion from non-escaping function to potentially escaping function of type dispatch block. So, yeah, you can't do that either. So, those are 3 examples of things you cannot do at all. Now, one thing you can do, which is actually kind of important to know, is you can actually pass into another function if it's also a non-escaping function. So if I made this no escape and then I try to do this one above, we will not get an error message at all because this function is no escape. So you can pass it to the same thing because it's exactly the same. So yeah, okay. All right, so on to auto-enclosure. Now, to me, auto-enclosure kind of reminds me of Jules in a sense. So an auto-enclosure is a closure that automatically automatically created to wrap an expression when it's passed in as an argument to a function. And when it calls it, it returns the value of the expression wrapped inside of it. So here I have an argument, just a very simple one. I'm actually going to do function. We'll change the name of this to function Autoclosure, so it's kind of clear. All right, and then we have our parameter coming in here. So I'm going to say Autoclosure. Okay. All right. So what this does is when Autoclosure comes in, it's basically gonna not accept anything. It's actually a closure that returns a Boolean. So if the Autoclosure is true, so if it evaluates and it is true, then this will print out it's true. Okay. So when we want to use this function, we would do f, and we want to evaluate some closure coming in. So we do our curly brackets. I'm going to say, hey, we evaluate 3 is greater than 1. Oops. Be nice if I use the full name. Okay. And it's true, because 3 is greater than 1, so evaluate is true. And so up here, it's, it prints out it's true, which is absolutely correct. All right, now say if we omitted these curly braces around this and said, hey, well, can it just, evaluate this like this? And no, it can't. You see, we have this wonderful little error, and this says cannot convert value of type bool to expected argument type. No parameters, returning Boolean. So you can't do that. But we actually can do that. And how we do that is we actually I'm going to rechange this name again. We do at Autoclosure, and then I'm going to change this to let's just do evaluate. Okay. And now, if you notice, our error message went away. Well, how did that happen? Well, what Autoclosure does is it takes an expression and automatically adds the little curly brackets so that it can evaluate this this argument that we passed into this function. So basically, in Autoclosure, it implies the basically what it does. Sorry, backtrack a little bit. So basically, what it does is it creates an automatic closure. So it creates the curly brackets around the expression. It's basically a syntactic convenience. So it just does it for you. So when the caller writes the expression, like how I wrote it here, 3 greater than 1, it automatically wraps it into a closure to become what I had written before. So it implies this here. So it implies the curly brackets. All right, before it's passed into this evaluate function here. So yeah, it automatically does it for you. Another thing that Autoclosure does, it also implies a no escape attribute. So if you want to use the closure that you pass into it to escape, you have to actually tell Autoclosure that it can. So I'm going to do another example. So we do another function here to try to let the Autoclosure escape. I'm going to do fleeing closure again. And it's going to be the same type as above. Okay, and this is not going to contain anything, just empty for right now because it's not going to really do any work. I'm just kind of showing you how Autoclosure works. So say if we evaluated this, right, and we try to let the Autoclosure escape by passing in evaluate, we will get an error. So if we look at this error, it says use of unresolved identifier tried to let Autoclosure escape. I think I ran into this problem again. Let me actually move this above, so hopefully it'll give me a different error. Maybe it might give me the same error. We'll find out. Okay, yeah. This was the error I was looking for. Yes, there's many errors, but this was the one I was looking for. Alright, invalid conversion from non-escaping function of type Autoclosure to potential escaping function. So this is the escaping function. So as you see, Autoclosure implies non-escaping. That's why I did non-escaping first in this video before I went to Autoclosure. So Autoclosure, it implies, one, that it's non-escaping, and two, whatever arguments are brought in, it wraps it so it's ready to use. So it automatically wraps everything. So it does two things, which is actually pretty cool. But another cool thing about Autoclosure that non-escaping closures can do is actually, if you wanted this closure to escape, you actually just type in parentheses, and we do escaping. So say if you did want this to be used elsewhere, and you see our wonderful error went away. So that's one thing you can't do with just, you know, non-escaping closures that you can do with Autoclosures. So say if you did want this to, you know, escape and be used elsewhere in your code, you can. Or if you didn't, then you didn't have to. Okay, so there we go. So yeah, in this video, I covered non-escaping closures, kind of went through how to do it. We encountered it before with sort. And then I also went through what you can and can't do with non-escaping closure. Actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to copy this and write can allow non-escaping closure to escape to another non-escaping closure. Hopefully that makes sense. So it can pass exactly the same thing, pass exactly the same type, right? Okay. Covered auto enclosure. So Autoclosure is kind of like Jules. He can, you know, he's not totally strict, you know, his way or the highway. He will let some things go if you do escaping at the end. So showed you a wonderful example with that. And that's it. So hopefully you found this video, you know, entertaining, informative. If you found it informative and it helped you out, you know, like the video. If you know, like all my videos, you know, please subscribe. That's the easiest way to find out when I upload videos. Alright, so code on, my friends.